So in the spirit of that, why don't we kick things off with an introduction of myself and Laura really quick, and then we'll jump into all the goody information she has. So I'm Jess. I am the founder of Out in the Boons, which is a super small shop consultancy for nonprofits mostly who are looking to get some support with their fundraising. I also offer like group coaching and some digital products and good stuff like that. And one thing that I've come to realize is there sadly isn't a lot of great examples for nonprofits the way there are in the for-profit world who can help other nonprofits kind of reimagine what maybe people are doing really great and mold that to what their organization is doing. And so that's what I'm trying to bring, just public service, trying to bring this to everyone to see how you can maybe adapt what other people are doing to work for your organization. And so one of the things that I have been obsessed with for many years pre-COVID is this idea of a No Gala gala. As someone that earns a lot of my living wages off of producing events, I find them to be very expensive, very time consuming, and a lot of work. And so I know it's a little counterproductive, but this idea of a No Gala gala is like super exciting for me. And Laura has done them. And so with that, I would love for Laura, you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your consultancy, tell us about your farm, and then we'll kick it off with all the goody information on a No Gala gala. Again, for the people that are just joining us, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. Otherwise, at about 45 minutes in, we will also cut to a Q&A if anyone wants to ask anything live. Okay? Thumbs up, everyone can hear me. If you can't, speak now. Let's do this. Tell us about yourself.
Jess, did you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. Well, welcome everybody. I am pleased to be on our chat today to talk about how to approach special events during a time of crisis in an untraditional and novel way. We'll get into the details of the events that I ran as we get into our webinar further. But by way of introduction, I am coming to you from the Mitten State, Michigan. I live there we go, let's do it. We live right about there on a small acre of land. And I was, right before we started, I was talking with Jess. We had a new addition to our family arrived yesterday. My husband and I adopted a baby heifer calf who was rejected by her mother, a twin, and she's got some like mobility development issues. She's a little bit of a runt, and we're pleased to be able to raise her and try to give her a good life. That's been taking up a little bit more of my time, but normally during the day and sometimes in the evenings and weekends, I run Do Good Consulting, and I've been in business for about 16 years after about 15 years prior to that in the trenches of the nonprofit world. In my consultancy, I do a ton of work with smaller to mid-sized nonprofit organizations and help them with their grassroots-driven fundraising needs, a lot of planning, a lot of special events, annual giving campaigns, fundraising, letter development, donor relations. I also do a ton of work in the area of communications and marketing for nonprofits, specializing in low-cost, high-impact, and innovative methods of getting the attention of stakeholders that need to be involved in and connected to your organization. So that's across print platforms, that's across electronic platforms, and I've even done things like speech writing, for more live presentations. And then finally, I do a lot of organizational development work, including strategic planning, program planning, transition planning, and sadly, I've not had to necessarily do a lot of this, but I do crisis management, and we're seeing that come into play quite a bit now. Like Jess, I'm what I call a single shingle operator. I work for myself here out of my home. And I will apologize in advance. I've got 4 cats in addition to the baby cow. And occasionally, one of them's a really big ham, so he likes to be on camera. And one of them's blind and deaf and has no idea when he's on camera, but somehow always manages to find his way in front of it, despite not knowing. So if that happens, I apologize. And he also has a bad tendency of yodeling. So if you hear a weird noise in the background, that's Charlie Poodle, the cat.
Well, it sounds like we're going to have maybe an eventful conversation either way. Okay, so let's kick things off. Why don't you, Laura, tell us a little bit about, let's go back in time and tell us a little bit about the situation you came into, which was a totally different time, a totally different crisis, and kind of what you were working with and how that sparked the idea for this No Gala.
Sure, absolutely. So before I moved to Michigan, I was living in Illinois. I'm an Illinois native, actually. And I had so my story about no-show galas kind of runs well into the past. So I assumed the helm of a Habitat for Humanity affiliate in Central Illinois in 2004. And when I arrived there, right as the end of year holiday was happening, I had asked the organization for their financials to do some analysis and was told that their treasurer was out of the country on a honeymoon. And in an attempt to be nice and not to bother her or them much more during the holidays, I accepted the post, thinking to myself, literally, how bad could it be? And upon arriving to my new job, I finally did get the financials. And yeah, it was that bad. I realized we had about 2 months of liquid cash on hand to operate. We had 0 reserve budgets. We had absolutely nothing in the pipeline. We had just missed the holiday year-end giving time. And I froze privately for a few moments and then decided, you know what, buckle up, let's do this. And we began to put together, with the help of an enormously visionary board president at the time, a plan to enact a strategic plan during a time when you might not think that strategic planning might be a good use of the organization's time. It actually was an incredibly unifying force for the board to understand, like, that trajectory of where we needed to be and how they fit into making that vision happen. And out of that process, an annual giving plan, which is one of my specialty areas, is annual giving and grassroots giving, developed. And my goal was to create a program where throughout the year, people were being asked to contribute to the organization in some way. We weren't quite ready at that time, given the lack of reserves or any reserves in any operating cash that we had, to be able to hold a large gala with down payments for events and things or for venues. And so I came up with, and this is back in like 2004. So this is, I won't say it's predating the internet, but being able to do Google searches like we do now, and information at your fingertips wasn't what it is. It wasn't back then what it is now. And so I came up with this idea for what we ended up calling the No-Show Gala. And my board kind of nodded politely. My staff scratched their heads. Even my cats at the time were like, lady. They all thought that this was a little bit crazy because they'd never heard of it before. And I powered forward, and what I was able to convince them of was that the cost of the postage was in the printing was going to be a lot less than, the grand cost of a large event. And we plowed forward, and we ended up holding the event for 3 years because the first year ended up to be such a success. We had not only money that came in during a really crucial and critical time for us, but we were also able to grab the attention of what was then, when I inherited the organization's database, a really tired, out of touch connections with our donors and other stakeholders that were on that list. This was a communication sent to them that like grabbed their attention right away. This was something new. No one in the community, no one in the region had been doing anything like this. And people responded. And so we ended up in our first year sending out what, these are based on memory because this was a while back and I'm not with the organization anymore. I hope that they've kept better records than the ones I got when I got there. But from memory, we had about 600 people that we were able to not invite to our no-show gala the first year. And I believe, these are my notes here, that we were able to raise about $5,000, it was just north of $5,000 from, at that time, a pretty tired old database of people who hadn't really been asked.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of bounce backs in terms of addresses that were no longer valid. So that database number, that 600, wasn't even really valid. And I calculated that we had about an 8% response rate or so. Mm. What was maybe more stunning from that was that piece of communication, and this was done the old-fashioned mail way, because like I said, this was at a time when e-newsletters and online communications looked a lot different, if not completely novel back then. We were able to grab the attention of people, and that was really important as we moved forward and started asking them to get involved in the organization's mission. Habitat, of course, building homes across the community. The other thing that I had inherited with the organization was an organization that stood at exactly 0 home builds. They had absolutely nothing in progress, and they had absolutely no home builds in the pipeline when I got there. So we were stagnated. So in the background of the strategic planning and planning this no-show gala behind the scenes, I quickly pulled on some sponsor sleeves, and we were able to get 2 home builds started right away. And so we created this chatter immediately of need in the community. We had 2 projects to which volunteers could affix themselves. We had 2 projects to which sponsors could affix their names and be affiliated. And then in sending out the no-show gala, we got the attention of people that we were really doing something that was different and innovative, and they wanted to be a part of it. Jess, I know you've got an image of what we sent out before.
So I thought before we jump into that, so one thing I guess I just want to like really have everyone grasp is that this idea of a No Gala Gala is really more of a campaign. It's with an event spin. It's really more of a campaign. So it's really thinking of this as more as a marketing or digital coupled with maybe mail. And we're going to talk a little bit about what Laura would do present day versus what her capabilities were a while back. So it's really more of that. Now, before we get into the images and stuff, I would love for you to break down, like, I'm just going to rapid fire ask some questions and then maybe we go through them. So I'm wondering, like, how far in advance did you begin the planning process? How far out from the first mail piece that went out to the actual event? Like, how many days or how many months or weeks was that? What did the communication pieces look like? Or maybe you could talk about what you would do now that we are so digital and we have email and social. I know that you use mailing pieces, which we're going to show some examples of to give you guys some inspiration. I want to also, maybe I'll ask one more question and then we can kind of run through that. But I think, like, for someone that's never done this, like, what are like the step-by-step kind of breakdowns? And I kind of want to know, like, how deep did you go into this No Gala Gala? We've already discussed this a little bit, but like how themed did you get? Did you go all the way in, or did you just kind of name this the No Gala Gala? Like, how, because you could probably go really deep, really, really, really deep. So I'm just kind of curious about a little bit about that. So, like, break it down for us a little bit in terms of timeline and actual assets you use to promote the event.
Sure. So for your first question about like, what did that advanced planning look like? And I know that Jennifer had asked what the specific steps were in leading up to this. So there's what Laura did back then before internet, was a real big thing. And then what Laura would be doing now if I was still executive director there, or if I was counseling a client now. So I'll kind of talk both of those things as I'm answering these questions. So when I took the helm of the organization, it was the 2nd of January. And by that spring, we had our first no-show gala. And it was more of a campaign. It wasn't a day. It was something that arrived in people's mails. And it basically was a marriage of the concept of an event and a fundraising letter. So people could respond to it. There was a response card in there because that's what you used back then. There wasn't really online giving as a thing. If people were going to give credit cards, they had to write it down. And so back then, that's what it looked like. And the planning for it began, I think, in February, and we sent it out in April, and then gifts came in from April into May. Okay. And that's a cycle that we stayed with for 2 more years. Mm-hmm. And we were able to use that as one of the mailed annual giving pieces. So our goal was to approach donors in an annual giving way 4 times throughout the year. Okay. We sent 3 what would be traditional 2 traditional fundraising letters, the no-show gala invitation, the paper invitation. And then we did annual review that we sent with people with a letter. So it was kind of a blend of data, stories, and an ask all blended together. So those were the 4 different ways that we would approach giving. In terms of that advanced planning, like I said, we started planning things in February the first year, but as we did this each year moving forward, the timeline got a little bit lessened. The impact wasn't as long because we knew what we were doing at that point. So we would start in March, mail out in April, and then revenues would come in April, May.
So can you talk a little bit about so back then you just put one piece of mail in the mailbox and kind of sent it off and crossed your fingers and that was that. So present day, especially this is what you do for a lot of your clients. If you were going to be doing a No Gala gala, how would you complement that mailing piece with digital products?
Sure. So definitely there would be a lot more at my disposal now than then, and I would absolutely be taking advantage of most, if not all, of those channels and opportunities. So I will now, at this point, I want to talk about like maybe what we could be doing now during a crisis situation, and then also kind of translate that into hopefully someday this will no longer be a coronavirus situation, and we can be talking about no-show galas in like the kind of the normal nonprofit fundraising world. So
I'm over here monitoring. Yeah.
You're monitoring. Okay, good. So right now in this environment, what I would say is making it more of that kind of one day of giving, maybe spread out over the course of a week leading up to a day of giving with a couple follow-up days. And this is all wrapped around the concept of right now that we need to be very sensitive to where people are at with the financial impact this crisis is having. So there's an added layer of like, is this even the right time to be asking people for money? The answer to that is both yes and no. There are definitely ways to be sensitive in how you're asking in these times. So we can go into that a little bit more later. So right now, what I would do is kind of use online tools like your electronic newsletter. Certainly, your information could be living on a page on your website, driving people back for more information. They're having some of your campaign art there and donation portals. So having an e-newsletter that's focused on what this non-event is, having all your social media channels pushing this information out, You could even include things like some peer-to-peer tools that are available. That kind of depends on the team that you've got. If you've got a robust enough team, because I have clients that would be in a position to do that, and I have others that would be woefully lacking in that ability. So it would depend on your organization. And then certainly using opportunities now that we didn't have available back then, like Facebook Live and other sort of live broadcast opportunities, to create like that point in time where you can take whatever the non-event is and turn it into an actual event for people to see, for them to actually hear you live. So those would be some of the ways that I would translate that currently. And then I would also do that, into the future. I think it'll hopefully someday become a lot more comfortable for us to take these sorts of events and not have to feel like we need to be as sensitive to whatever the financial climate is like we do now. We always want to be sensitive to our donors' financial situations, but this is presenting a different level of concern and sensitivity now.
Yep. So just to give maybe people who want like a step-by-step, one of the other things that I know that the Library Foundation of Los Angeles every year for like the last I think it's actually like the last 30 years, they've done this Stay Home and Read campaign, which I think is so clever, correlating with what their organization actually does, right? And what I know that they do is they treat all of the lead up communication just like they would for a real event. So in addition to a hard copy invitation that goes in the mail, they time out their email and social assets just like they would the frequency, the style, the professionalism of it, as if they were going to be hosting a real event in person. They also really do a great job, just like Laura mentioned, if you have it, in providing copy and digital images and social shareable images for their host committee, their board of directors, their peer-to-peer fundraisers. So it makes it super easy to share on behalf of the organization. It spreads out those networks, right? And then, so I would really put the thinking cap on, like, this is a campaign, right? But you need to treat it like it's a real event. I think it's great what Laura said, like have the event kind of be bookmarked into a set time frame, like over a certain week, or maybe it's a day, or maybe it's a month, like whatever it is. But it needs to have a cutoff point, because then you're going to need to move on. And I do think it's really, really, really important when you complete the campaign to really share the results. So we had X number of supporters, not attend our event, or whatever clever thing you want to say. And then you also need to communicate how much you all raised. I think that that's really, really important, because I think the kind of people this campaign attracts are people that really want resources to go directly towards the organization, more so than the overhead costs that come with putting on an event. So for example, and Laura can break it down for us a little bit more, she mentioned at the top, the expenses for this event back in the day were postage and printing and staff time. Unlike a real event, which can be thousands of dollars, right? That means that she was basically able to net a majority of what she raised, and that goes really far with donors that really care about that. So I think it's super important to communicate that. Okay, Jennifer's asking a little bit more about the 2004 campaign versus, say, an annual campaign. What made this No Gala in particular? So let's talk about that, because you guys got super clever with like your imagery and your slippers, and I think that there's a lot of ways to do this, and my kind of inability to turn off like my creative switch, if anyone ever wants to like do a riff on what would work for your organization, I would like love to do that, because I think there's a lot of styles like the Stay Home and Read thing for the Library Foundation. But tell us a little bit about what you all did, and then I can show some of the images to help
Sure.
bring that visually?
So we had 3 different events, the art of which for 1 year I was able to find, and Jess can end up showing that. And then I found some art for the 2 other years that was similar to what we sent out, lacking the actual art itself. What we wanted to do was, and this would work currently for an image splash, like it did back then as a mailed piece. We were able to create a piece where when people opened it out of the envelope, it grabbed their attention right away. We wanted for there to be that pow or wow factor when they opened it. The same thing today would translate into, as you launch your campaign, whatever sort of strong imagery, clever imagery that you use would be the thing that you use to grab people's attention. So we had 3 different themes. I don't remember which order they were in anymore, but there was, I'll start with the first one was, for my recollection, was looking down your own legs to a big pair of pink fuzzy slippers on your feet with a television blurred out in the background. And the cover of it said something like, "We'd like to not invite you, ... urging them to open it." And then something inside about, we'd like to not invite you to our upcoming gala. And then we went into some clever language about how we were asking them to ditch the high heels and the wingtip shoes and instead put on their favorite pair of slippers and join us with a gift instead.
Love that.
So that was 1 year. And then another year, we chose some imagery, which would be, for example, if I were standing in front of a podium and looking out at a room of, those 10 top tables with the white tablecloths set with the silverware and the centerpieces, and there wasn't a single soul out there, and all you see is what's in front of me, including the microphone that would have been in front of me here, and there's a thought bubble next to, like, would have been coming out of my mouth, and it said, "Thank you for not coming this year," or something like that. And then you open it up, and again, it was, thanks for staying home, keeping your tux on its hanger, your gown, dry in its dry cleaning bag. It was so nice not to see you, but what we'd sure like to see is a gift to support our work. So that was one of this second year. And then the third year, Jess actually has an example of.
Right. Let me try and share my computer screen. Let's see. Is this all working for you guys? Can you give me a nod?
Thumbs up.
Okay, so this is one, right?
Yep. This is an actual one of the actual pieces. So you can obviously see there's a missing person there. And it says, "We invite you not to attend the annual Habitat for Humanity No-Show Gala." And then when you open it, you see that gray piece with the italics, and then on the other side, it's an open card that you're looking at there. It says, "No need to hire a sitter, no need to get your outfit dry cleaned, no need to get your hair done, or remember how to tie a black tie. Don't even count on a good meal. We've got nothing planned." And then on the next page, it gets real, and it says, "Except, of course, building homes for families in need. We're inviting you to stay home, relax with your family, but please contribute to the price of a gala ticket to help support our home building programs. Buy a ticket or 2, then enjoy not coming to our event." So that's basically the language we use. I would suggest that even though that this is kind of an old-fashioned approach, right, something you get in the mail, that this sort of imagery and language, perhaps shortened a bit for more online and shorter attention span situations that are more common now, that this would be the same sort of language that you could use to grab people's attention in more of an online format these days.
And what I want to call out that I love is that it's actually so much more expensive than just the cost of a ticket often to attend an event like this. Like you said, there's babysitters, there's an outfit, there's hair and makeup sometimes if it's super fancy. And so what you've done is you've addressed not only what someone perhaps would spend on a ticket, but all the additional costs that now can go directly to your organization. So I think that that's super smart. however you might want to do that, calling that out. And I love that you guys just have like through and through said like the No Gala Gala, like I even love this one, don't even count on a good meal, like like because we're not gonna be no chicken dinners for anyone kind of a thing. And so I think that this is all really smart. While I'm here, and I'm sorry, so this is like another.
Yeah. So the microphone one, this is in the one we actually used, you could see the tables a lot more clearly and the idea that no one was there. And then of course there's a thought bubble right there that gave you the text of like, thanks for not showing up tonight, type of thing. The one I want to talk about in a little bit more though is the slippers one, because I think that's a kind of a cool concept. Can you show that one, Jess?
Yeah, let me see. Right here.
All right, can people see the slippers?
Yeah, I think so.
Slippers, yeah, people can see it. Okay. So the one we used was legs like this with pink fuzzy slippers. At the end, she was wearing a bathrobe, and in the background there was kind of a blurred out TV. And then, so what I would say, this concept for me would be the one that would be most easily translatable into more of an online campaign now, because it can easily make a request of people, not only to make a gift to basically stay home and stay on your couch and watch your favorite show on the boob tube, but to join in by showing the slippers that you're wearing as you support this campaign. So if this were my campaign today, it would revolve around this theme of like the no-show slipper campaign, and I would be asking actively for people not only to support the campaign, but do so by saying that they'd made a gift and showing us the slippers they were wearing when they made the gift. And that hopefully would create some more kind of, not maybe viral activity, but you know, some clever comments and people weighing in, and probably some people finding clever pictures of slippers online to show instead of the worn out house slippers they might be too embarrassed to show online.
Totally.
So I had fun with that.
And I think that you could get super clever with like a hashtag, you know, I don't know, this is not my most creative, but like stay home with your slippers or whatever. Or I'm sure like the Library Foundation, which I was explaining before, has a stay home and read thing that like it kind of does build a community. Like I love that idea. I think that that's really kind of a way to bring people together in this kind of virtual campaign. That being said, that would need to maybe kind of take place on a date. Like you would have the No Gala Gala on April 25th, and on April 25th you're asking people to share their slippers, share their hashtag, that kind of thing. I think that that's
and their donation. Yeah.
And of course, yes. I'm wondering, go ahead.
There was a question before about the steps leading up to a campaign like this. So I thought I'd shed some light. I'd rather do this one more in real time, like for today's world, to make it as practical as possible for people. Because need is real right now, of course, gathering any team members that you've got that would be involved in planning an event like this, and getting them into an online format, meeting format like what we're on now in Zoom. I would say that you want to give yourself probably at least 2 weeks, if not more, to kind of plan things out. And one of the things that I would be cautioning my organization or my client right now would be to use language that maybe doesn't right now set a specific date for your event, but tells people to watch for an amazing event happening the week of. And here's why I might recommend that now. If we all think back 3 weeks ago, I don't think any of us would really imagine what's happening right now. So whatever the week is of your event, I think it's important that you guys remain flexible to whatever might be dominating the headlines and therefore the attention of your potential donors that week. If no news breaks early on, give some flex and make your event a little bit later. And, you know, if news breaks later in the week, you know, push your event even over to the weekend, potentially. This way you're not married to a particular date when something might be blasting, you know, and people's phones are blowing up with, you know, whatever the latest thing is, which will definitely impact their ability to pay attention to whatever it is that you're doing, whatever campaign you're running. So a few of the things that I would be talking with my team about would be definitely setting that timeline and figuring out the to-dos, right? Who needs to do what? So getting that team assembled, finding out whose talents can be applied, who's got what time. Some people are, you know, still working right now and you know, their time hasn't really changed. Others are off work, unfortunately, and are really wanting to feel less stir crazy and wanting to contribute. So we may be able to tap them like we haven't before. And then I would do I'm a big planner. I love writing things down or putting them into, like, in this case would probably be Google shared documents. What exactly is it that you need? So everything from the campaign theme, whatever you guys agree on, and then starting breaking it down into, you know, what are the platforms that your organization has at its disposal? What sort of imagery are you going to create? And then creating all that imagery for all of those different platforms, because it can't be easy enough for you guys to just create a couple pieces of art. You've got to be able to create art that works across every platform. I'm a big fan of using Canva. I hope everyone on this webinar uses Canva. It's an amazing resource. So that's where I would make sure somebody is in charge of creating that eye-catching, eye-popping art. I would also be talking about sponsors, and that may sound like something difficult right now, but there are some businesses right now that are doing all right, because we still have needs as a society, and there are some businesses that and because they're doing well, are feeling like they really want to give some of that back to do good. Mm-hmm. So think about some of the opportunities you might have for businesses in your community that might want to have their name affixed to a campaign like this. It could be, you know, a logo that's included on electronic materials that are being sent out or posted. But that would be one way to underwrite some of your the funds that you want to raise while partnering with a business. Mm-hmm. Depending and with this concept of sponsorships, one of the things that I would play around with, and this would depend on your organization's finances, it would depend on your organization's data contacts and how robust they are. But there's a part of me that would really deeply consider the idea of doing at least like a save the date postcard, so a traditional one sent in the mail, as kind of the first nibble to turning people's attention to the online format. So that piece to me would have like a sneak peek of the campaign. Don't unveil it there. Use that as a hook to drive people to want to watch your online platforms the week of this event. So you want to get them connected early on. So send that piece out, 2 weeks in advance, and make sure that you're spelling out exactly what the call to action is there. And what that is if you're not on our newsletter, sign up now. Here's the link, or here's the URL. And you have to spell that out, of course, in that old-fashioned piece. And then we're on these platforms. And for some people, you need to spell out how to find your organization. I'll give you an example. I think lots of people who are on this Zoom call now would have absolutely no problem doing a web search for, say, Do.good Consulting or Laura Huth-Rhoades, or even Miss Black Eyed Pea, our new calf who has her own Facebook page. You guys could easily look that up and find that. But someone like my father, who's 76 years old, or my mother, who's 75, God love them, I get a call a day about how to do stuff on social media. Mm-hmm. They're probably more than willing to contribute, but we've got to be able to get them to the right place to contribute. So the postcard can be used as a way to include generations like my parents that may not be as comfortable with the online platform we're using. But it also can be used to stir excitement and drive engagement to online platforms for people at the right time, right before your campaign. And then the week of the campaign, I would start doing kind of the bigger reveal. So you start, unveiling things piece by piece, and you start tickling people with what's going on. And this is all, of course, dependent on whatever's happening in the news that week. We certainly don't want to look insensitive if we're trying to raise money around a time when, things have gotten, super bad. We need to be flexible that we might postpone our event, or, at whatever point later this week, we're going to be unveiling it. So I would have like a drip campaign that week that starts to unveil additional pieces that continue to inspire people to stay connected with you and check back and want to learn more about what is about to happen. So that would be the language I would be using. And again, like I mentioned earlier, this would be across all of your electronic communications platforms. I would be strongly encouraging people in those communications to share these things with their friends, with their connections, stating that explicitly in the posts and in the communications. But I would also, in the background, I'd have maybe what you might call an A list of people who we could rely on to be online, causing chatter to be driven in our posts. Right. Don't wait for it to happen. When you post something, make sure that your A list of people, and this could just be an email list that you guys have that you're sending email to, 10 different people who are really engaged and connected online, who have agreed to, like your post, share your post, comment on your post, tag people in your posts. And that can really help up your engagement and help change your algorithms and get your event, your non-event, seen by more people.
Mm-hmm. So a couple of things I want to make sure that are just like underlined is the idea that you can still work to recruit sponsors for this No Gala Gala the way you would for a real event. You just need to come up with a different maybe price point and then maybe set of benefits that they would receive. I cannot agree more with Laura on if you have the flexibility in terms of timing, I would actually back up and spend at least a month, at least 30 days list building. And that means both on your social channels and your email lists. And I have blog posts and ways that you can do that, but beefing up your community as much as possible. I also want to say that if you as your organization are a little unpresent on social or digital, you need to get present before you start hammering people with communication. So if you're an organization that posts once in a while and send your email list and email once in a while, you are going to get nothing but unsubscribes if you just start hammering people. So what does that look like, right? That means over the next 30 days, you need to make a plan and you need to post maybe 3 or 4 times a week on your social channels, and you need to be sending thoughtful, engaging, service-based communication so that when you do start hitting them up for this No Gala Gala at a more frequent pace, they're not who the F is this organization out of nowhere? I never hear from them. And here I am hearing from them for the first time ever. And it's nothing but asking for money. So you need to warm them up. You need to prep your audience. That's super important. I'm curious, Laura, about this idea of a host committee. I know the Library Foundation still uses a host committee and they put those names on their invitation. I'm wondering if you guys use that, what were some of the expectations for host committee members, if you use them at all the way you would for maybe a traditional in-person event?
For the No Show Gala, we did not. That really just looked more like an annual appeal, and that was mostly done in-house. Okay. I will tell you that in years 2 and 3 for the organization that I was there, we did do an actual live gala event. So we did do both. Okay. Ours was a celebration. So we tried to do the gala theme, or the gala theme in the No Show Gala. And then later in the fall, it was more of a celebration. We would have a homeowner that would speak. We'd have volunteer awards. And so we try to differentiate that. No, we didn't have this no-show gala and then anyway, invite you to a gala, even though that's kind of what we did. The flavor of the actual live in-person event was different. It wasn't like black tie. It wasn't as fancy. So that event did have a committee that worked on it, but the just the mailed one didn't. For this though, for what we're talking about, translating that into today and like current needs, I would say definitely looking to your base and figuring out how to pull people together to plan this for you. This is not something that I think an organization should pull off with one volunteer or a single staff member working remotely. This should be a team effort for a variety of reasons. One, because it needs to be, and two, it's a great way for the team to feel cohesive and engaged around a single positive issue at a time when I think that's really badly needed. As far as the like recognition of those people, I would say that's also part of your A team of people who would be out promoting and sharing the word and spreading the word, right? That online engagement and boosting that. And at some point I'd say focus on thanking, people who really helped to make this happen. I do that maybe after the event, unless you've got a really higher powered team where having a list of people from the community or for whatever your service region is, on the front end saying that they're pulling together this really amazing thing that's going to be unveiled this week and having their names out there now as affiliated with that would help to drive the engagement that Jess was talking about. And just to your point about like, if your online engagement right now feels like perhaps it went to sleep or took a very long nap, you're right. You need to wake that up right now, because if the first thing that you think is going to happen is the first post you put up is that like the 400 people on your list are going to see it, that's a big mistake. I've got a couple different organizations that wanted to take events that were canceled in March and April and turn them into online forums. One was not really very well positioned to do that. Their online engagement I advised them against it, especially considering what they wanted to raise. So they're taking some time to consider their options. And in the background, I've said, no matter what, if you guys decide to do this online or not, you have to build your engagement no matter what. So whether you choose to use that for a no-show gala later, fine. But right now you just need more people engaged on your page and reading whatever it is you're posting. And the second organization, actually much smaller, but their online engagement is pretty amazing. However, one of their problems is that their leadership suffers from some things that we see in board of directors a lot, and that is kind of like a lot of older white men who sort of like I was mentioning my dad earlier, don't really get online engagement. Like they don't understand Facebook Live. They don't understand how to even tag me despite me showing him for 15 different times. So they don't get that that's something they could be tapping. There are two people in the organization that are driving that online engagement for their organization and doing a very good job at it. But the board was like, nah, I don't think so. And so they're putting that on pause, even though I feel like in a way they're structured better, much more strongly to be able to accomplish something like that.
Okay, so we went a little bit over. We have 10 minutes to go. I want to invite anyone that may have a specific question or any of the like for Laura to maybe you can either type it in the chat, or I can, because I think I have all the power right now to be able to unmute or mute you, or you can write your question in the chat box. But I'm curious if anyone has any specific questions about this kind of No Gala or producing an online campaign or anything like that, or if anyone maybe wants some feedback. I see Victoria here is wondering some ideas on raising some money for college students that their foundation serves, a lot whom have been affected by COVID-19. I mean, I think that you could definitely do a No Gala campaign, but I definitely think you need to warm your audience up before you do that. And I think, I don't know. Any questions? Anyone have anything? Or while we're letting some of those come in, Laura, I'm not sure if you have any ideas for Victoria.
Yeah, so that's a good question, Victoria, and I've got a couple questions for you. So maybe at some point here in a second, we can unmute her so we can have her included. One quick thing I wanted to let you guys know, because I gave you some of the early metrics when we had that really tiny mailing list and we raised just north of $5,000 the first year we did this. We kept doing the event. As you saw, I gave you some of the images that we used in some of the other years. Year two, we focused a lot on list development. And back then that looked like names and addresses. But by year two, my estimation was we had about 2,500 names over the 600 the prior year. And my recollection is that we raised about 21,000 in the no-show gala the second year. And then by year three, we had about 6,000 people on the mailing list. And then we raised, in my estimation, and we had sponsors for the event at that point, we raised about 45,000 by having absolutely no event whatsoever and just sending out a single mail piece. So I just wanted to give you guys that. It wasn't just this $5,000 event over 3 years. It grew and it grabbed attention for the organization.
Awesome.
So now for Victoria's question, which was about college students losing scholarship money. Victoria, I see you're unmuted. Are these students that are current scholarship winners who have lost access to funding, or is this just raising money to support college students who haven't yet been chosen?
Well, these students, they're already current scholarship students, but
Okay.
Our foundation helps the whole entire student body, whether they're scholarshiped or not. And
Okay.
a lot of them depended on the college for food and other resources, and a lot of them don't have access to hotspots and laptops and food. So we were just trying to, I guess, figure out a good theme to use to kind of warm up people to the thought of a no-show gala.
So your beneficiaries are the college students, but the benefactors are individuals who support your mission, who want to support these students in their educational pursuits, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so I think I heard you say that many of the scholarship winners don't necessarily have the resources, maybe the computers or the online access to be in touch as maybe they were when they were still able to be at school. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
What percentage, like, do you have a feel for some of the scholarship winners who you might still be in touch with, who you might be able to, because the direction I'm going is using their stories and their visuals to be able to appeal to donors, and to, if you have this no-show gala, finding out, even if you had, 5 or 10, you could ask them if they're at home, do you have something that you could like make it somewhat not fun in the sense of like laughing fun type of thing, but like, why not have them maybe dress up in a gala type outfit that they might have and talk about the importance of your no-show gala to their education. And then your organization's voice comes in to say something like, in addition to helping Laura, pursue her education in political science, there are, at least 500 other students just like her who want to go out into the world using their degrees to create community change. And today or next week, we're going to ask you to do something really remarkable to change their lives in this time of uncertainty. And so that sort of visual of having these students kind of participating in this kind of fun and clever way in a no-show gala, and having them videotape, and you can use devices like this, and a lot of students have at least these sorts of devices to be able to tape themselves and do live feeds or videos that could be even edited.
Gotcha.
Does that help you, Victoria?
That was perfect. Thank you.
Cool. I just also want to call out, Victoria, that Jennifer here, who you may have met at the event last November, who's a rock star. You two should connect separately because you guys do work with a similar demographic, and she gave you a good resource here too. So I just want to call that out. I see here Paulina has a quick question. So she says, if our online engagement isn't so good, would you recommend doing the traditional mailing and ask them to go online? I have a thought about that, but Laura, what's your thought? And I can round us up.
Sure, I would probably do a blend of both, not an either or. as Jess mentioned earlier, and I reiterated, taking a timeline to cultivate people who may not have yet connected with your organization, to really try to drive them to online engagement using clever techniques, not just the typical, like, please like us on Facebook, but give them a reason they need to be following you on Facebook. And I think you'll see that transition for them following you there as well happen more readily. So taking that time now and trying to drive that engagement, there's some strategies that I think for those of you who even if you're not struggling with engagement, anyone can use better and increased engagement. So a couple of strategies: be very intentional in your language. If you want people to like your Facebook page, make sure that the language you're using is language that if you were them would excite them to want to do the thing you want them to do, right? Don't just write an icon on there and assume that they're going to follow you or click that. Two, I would use your stakeholders. I send messages to boards of directors that I work with all the time, and I give them clear, simple instructions on, because I can see whether or not they've actually liked their own organization's page. So that's part of my intake assessment process with clients to test, because a lot of boards, they're like, oh yeah, we're engaged. And I'm like, well, they're falling short in this department. So here are some clear steps. Go here, do this. And part of that is to go to, say, a Facebook page or to a Twitter or whatever, and do the following actions. In the case of Facebook, for example, a lot of people, my dad and even younger audiences, have no idea how to invite friends. There's some stuff that we see on the page all the time that's just clutter to them. Also, the idea of those 3 dots that offer a lot different opportunities. You should have seen my dad's face when I showed him that, because he had absolutely no idea that you could click on that to see a whole lot of other things. Also, he had no idea what notifications were for the longest time. And I wish I had taped that reaction when I showed him. All these people told me that they've sent me messages. Yeah, Dad, here's all the 20 messages. And he had no idea to check where those were. So don't assume that people know how to invite people, how to tag people. And the more you can be explicit about that, you're going to see different engagement. Also, making sure that you are, I just lost my train of thought. Vaporized right out of my head. If it comes back, I'll add. Maybe Jess, did you catch it?
I didn't, but I was just going to round it out with, I think, Paulina, my advice would be, I wouldn't just jump into a campaign. What my advice would be is to really back it up at least 30 days of becoming engaged online, becoming present online before you start a campaign. I wouldn't just jump 2 feet into the campaign. I would really advise you to warm that audience up so that when you do launch the campaign, again, they'll be more receptive, they'll be more present, it will just be more successful. And I do agree with Laura that you need to couple it up with both a physical mailer or 2, save the date, invite, whatever, followed by a series of emails and complemented with social posts. Did your thought come back to you?
I remembered. It's a kind of a reiteration of what I mentioned before, and that was finding some of those key stakeholders that you can ask proactively to help drive engagement. Sometimes just the idea of one other thing that stakeholders can do is follow your page and set that notification to get all of your stuff first. There's a lot of people that don't understand how that's done and the value that allows for your organization. And so if you guys can set a goal of 10, 15, even 20 people who pledge to try to do in the next couple of weeks a better job of being more chattery with you on whatever platforms it is you're on that they are also on, you can see your engagement really take off because the algorithms that are used in these social platforms really respond to others doing your work for you. That's really what they want. They want other people to be kind of sucked into this and tagging others and sharing posts and commenting. That's what these platforms are about. And the more you have that happen, the more you're going to get rewarded for it by Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc.
Totally. Okay, guys, we are at time. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Laura, what's the best way to be in touch with you if people have follow-up questions or any of the like? What's that best way?
Sure. My company name is Do Good Consulting. I am Laura Huth-Rhoades, and I can be reached at laura@dogoodconsulting.org. I'm on the web at dogoodconsulting.org. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Facebook's my preference. Do Good is as well. And then you can always call me too, because I'm still an old-fashioned girl. I'm kind of right in the middle of the younger age, which is doing social media, and I can still communicate with my parents in their old-fashioned ways. So you can call me on the old phone at 217-778-1687.
Awesome.
Feel free to holler if you get a few questions. Also, if you want any of the examples from today, including like that, this document that we shared the invitation, I would be more than happy to send that to you. Just hit me up with an email and I will shoot that file to you.
Awesome. Great. Oh, thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. Next Wednesday, I'm going to be jumping on with, her name is Liz Plakja. She is the co-founder and CEO of Ruby's Rainbow, which is one of my favorite grassroots organizations. They do an online campaign every March called the 321 Pledge to raise scholarship money for people who want to go to college and have Down syndrome. And they do a phenomenal job. It's a traditional online campaign. She's been doing it for like 8 or 9 years. So if anyone wants to join, we'll be back next Wednesday with that conversation. And everyone else, I am sending good vibes and good thoughts your way during this very uncertain time, and I will check you on the flip side. Thank you, Laura, so much again.
You're welcome. Stay healthy, everyone.
Stay healthy and sane. Bye.
Bye, everyone.